Uh, this is actually these instructions are in the nature of an advisory, and it is not absolutely binding, and I do believe that it is probably not appropriate to make them binding. But it's more important that this money is used appropriately. But increasingly we find that the departments have begun to take notice of this instruction and actually apply it in exactly the right way. For example, in the states that some of the states that I was referring to, like Maharashtra and Rajasthan, they have actually referred to these instructions and said, these are the instructions that you can use the 2% or 3% of your budget. And they have also indicated that this money should be used to make available the services that your department provides. And in addition to that, they have actually identified the services also. So I think more than just the 3% per se, the cause for satisfaction is that this provision is now being applied in the right way by many of the departments to actually create the services.
So, and in Maharashtra state, they have adopted e-governance parameter in performance management rules for government officials. So, any plans for a similar thing happening in central government?
We believe that that is certainly a positive development. And while such a thing may not be possible for every single officer, because the opportunity to execute a project or to be at the head of a project implementation may not be there for everybody. But as we go forward, I think almost everybody in the government would either be a user or a supervisor of users or a leader of project execution, and therefore in some way or the other they would contribute, and to the extent that that contribution is reflected in the performance appraisal, I think it is the right direction to go in.
So, and DIT is a role model with respect to adoption of IT and e-governance. So what is the status of file management system in DIT? Not just the file monitoring, but working on files online.
Yeah. As you know, there is a project called the e-office, which is one of the mission mode projects, and for which the DARPG is the nodal ministry in the government, because this project is intended to create an electronic version of the office manual, based on which government business is transacted in the whole of the government. And we are working along with the Department of Administrative Reforms in implementing that project. DIT is one of the departments where this project is being implemented. In the past, the electronic file, not just the file tracking, but the electronic file itself, was implemented within the e-governance division. But it becomes quickly obvious that unless there is a complete game plan which encompasses and embraces the rest of the wings within the government, it hits a hump, either in terms of a higher level or in terms of moving across the department. For example, if a file has to go to the finance wing, unless the finance is also in the same mode, then there becomes a necessity to transit it into physical mode. Similarly, when files move up and down. So all of these are areas which would actually be covered in the course of implementation. Today there are at least half a dozen departments where efforts have been commenced in right earnestness to create and use electronic files. But the fact is that they are still early days, and that is the case even within the DIT. But we hope that with the e-office this will change. We do already have an intra-DIT operating in the DIT, which is not only a portal which has a lot of information of relevance to the employees, but which also enables a lot of basic activities and transactions to be done on the net, waiting to leave and so on.
So, and are there any plans to accept RTI applications on it?
You mean for the government as a whole?
For
or
Department of IT at least, beginning with DIT?
Well, we are looking at, in the area of e-governance, we are looking at the mobile as one of the important channels for service delivery, service access and service delivery. And some of the interesting examples have been the use of mobile in RTI. In Bihar, this has run for some time. And we had in fact explored the possibility of funding a pilot for the implementation of the RTI in consultation with the DARP, with the Department of Administrative Reforms and Personnel, which is the nodal ministry for the RTI. So we are trying to work with them to work out mechanisms for availing of RTI through the mobile telephone.
So, despite so many developments, India has slipped in the UN e-government ranking from 113, it has come to 119. Any reason you think on that account?
Well, I am not aware of the nitty-gritties of how exactly that ranking is done, but based on earlier experience with that, some of this is related to very macro parameters which have very little to do with the area that we call e-governance in this context. For example, the telephone density, or for example the human resources that are available in terms of education levels and so on. So in some of these parameters, each of these parameters has a weightage of 1/3, and if you look at the e-governance itself, often it is measured in terms of just 5 or 6 particular websites. So yes, that is certainly a matter of some concern, but it is not necessarily fully representative of what the goals that we are looking for are, how far that has been met, and what is the relative progress that we have been made vis-a-vis the others in those areas. So I think we need to really study the implications of that slippage. In fact, there have been some other international assessments made also, which have shown that India has moved up in the rankings, and I'm sure you are aware of those also. But I think we need to look at how meaningful these assessments are from our point of view, because the yardstick for measurement, for example, is very different. We are more concerned with people having access to a service, and not necessarily whether they are themselves using it or whether they themselves have the computer and the internet. So the method of measurement and looking at this, I think, does tend to be somewhat different.